for the show's central protagonist. If you think about the way the show pans out, the ending actually centered around a father explaining to his children how he was able to find his happily ever after. But it fails to deliver on this intended premise. There is no real happily ever after. It's pretty depressing. There was actually a scene that was deleted from the show's final episode that almost fixes the way this feels with some simple dialogue and character choices. The primary source of romantic tension in How I Met Your Mother is delivered through the relationship of Ted Mosby and Robin Scherbatsky. We spent a lot of time rooting for Ted and Robin to get together. During the course of the show, the audience is forced to bear witness to Ted and Robin screwing up any chance at a successful relationship. Every time it happens, we get more on very quickly. Sometimes these shakeups can work to be a surprising benefit to a sitcom's overarching story, and sometimes they can make absolutely zero sense whatsoever. How I Met Your and more frustrated as viewers. Relationship shakeups are a big part of any sitcom's lasting development. If things become stale and predictable, audiences move from others. Relationship shakeups are unique because it's really hard to tell if some of the decisions that the writers make are good or bad. The decision to have Robin date Barney wasn't necessarily a bad thing the first time. However, going back to this relationship 2 more times wasn't great for anyone's character development. Their relationship starts to seem hollow and forced. The central narrative to the relationship at times feels like 2 deeply flawed people building a relationship out of how deeply flawed they both are. On the other side of that coin, Robin keeps a proverbial toe in Ted's waters at all times, so when you're watching the show, it seems like Robin never fully commits to Barney, and at the same time, Robin never fully lets go of Ted.
Hey, we still have our 40 deal, right? We're both still single at 40?
I'm all yours.
The way these characters start to interact with one another begins to feel less like they are progressing through natural relationships and more like writers creating caveats to bail themselves out if something doesn't end up working. This maybe isn't the entirety of why How I Met Your Mother's finale feels like a bit of a letdown, but it is a major contributor. This unhealthy attachment to one another makes the end of Ted's story feel less like a happily ever after and more like a questionably content ever after. The writers knew this needed to be addressed and resolved. They filmed an entire scene that addresses this exact point in a very head-on kind of way. The scene finds Ted running into Robin on the street while he is out with his daughter, and the two agree to have lunch. This is a moment that had been romanticized throughout the show's run. As this scene plays out, we get some friendly and familiar banter between the two, but then the conversation slowly starts to shift back into reminiscing about their youth.
All those nights at McLaren's? I mean, how did we end up here?
During this moment, Robin ends up misreading Ted's intent as a shared romantic interest. This, by all means, makes sense. Robin is used to Ted yearning for her. In a way, she has always kind of kept Ted in one of those, in case of emergencies, break glass boxes. This prompts Robin to basically blurt out her feelings toward Ted in the way he has always wanted to hear them. After this brief dialogue, there is an awkward pause. Ted clarifies his intent to Robin, and they actually have a discussion about how happy Ted has become in his marriage and how content he is with his family. He goes on even further to clarify the definition of his happiness by telling Robin that he doesn't think about the what-ifs anymore. Ted has to pick up his kids, and we get this final, heartfelt inside joke before he departs.
Major problems?
It feels a little somber, but it's also the perfect full-circle moment for Ted Mosby. Now, this is the moment that How I Met Your Mother desperately needed, but failed to include. Not only did this scene create closure for Ted and Robin's relationship, but it also strengthens and solidifies the entire premise of How I Met Your Mother as a whole. Without this scene, How I Met Your Mother effectively leaves the audience thinking that for the entire time Ted has been telling his story to his children, he's secretly been harboring feelings for another person. He's sitting his extremely young children down to explain that he basically settled for their mother. This lunch scene between Ted and Robin is so important that it actually changes the entire contextualization of the show's ending. And it's, quite frankly, a little insane that it wasn't included in the show's finale. Even Josh Radnor, who played Ted on the show, has his own confusion as to why the scene was ultimately disincluded from the final episode. But he seems to insinuate that there was just too much content that they were trying to pack into the final 3 episodes. They're so densely packed, these episodes, and they're always long. Some stuff has to go. Sitcoms are difficult to get made. They are even more difficult to sustain over long periods of time. to keep things fresh, changes have to be made to the way the characters interact. And for the most part, changes and development are really beneficial to a show, but audiences still need closure to the primary goals of the protagonist, and audiences certainly need showrunners to make good on the promises they make when a show's premise is presented. The deleted scene from How I Met Your Mother serves as a reminder that you don't need much to create closure. And with efficient writing and stellar performers involved in your television show, you can give an audience all the closure they need in just a few fleeting minutes.